Hi everyone, welcome to video 4. In the last video, we learned about entities. Before we start this video, if you haven't done so, make sure to check out video 3. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment sections and we'll get back to you. We also want to let you know that you're doing amazing so far. If there are any concepts that you feel like you don't 100% understand, don't worry. This is very common when you're interacting with a new platform, learning a new technology. Just remember that practice makes perfect, and we're here to help you. In this video, we're going to learn about context. Specifically, we'll look at both input and output context. We're going to examine the logical jump rules that context play in linking different intents. To do so, I'll show you a demo while explaining key terminologies. By the end of this video, you should be able to connect multiple intents to make a basic chatbot conversation. Now let's take a look at context and how they work in Dialogflow. Feel free to pause this video at any time if you need a minute to catch up. In video 3, you learned about entities, and you also made a third intent called asking name 003. Inside of this intent, we added several first names as our training phrases. This is because at the very end of intent 2, the chatbot asks the user, what is your first name? So in response, the user would reply what their first name is. After that, you also added an entity called first name, and you linked your training phrases with this entity so that the chatbot would remember the first name that is provided and then repeat that information, your first name, back to you in the next question, which is a text response here. And that's the main functionality of an entity, which is to help the chatbot remember the phrases, the information that is provided by the user, and then use that in response to the user. So following the script that was provided to you at the end of intent 3 here, in response to this question, are you a teacher? Here, the user could answer one of two responses, right? So first, they could say, yes, I am a teacher, or they could say, no, I'm not a teacher. And after that, if you look at the script, if the user answers no, then we want to ask them again if they are a student. So here we see this very clear branching of the logic in a conversation where the user says, yes, we want to do something. And if the user says, no, we want to do something, right? So this is a great segue into context. So to achieve the logic flow that we were just talking about, we need to use context. And what are contexts? Basically, context help the chatbot to keep track of what has happened in the conversation so far. It is something that the chatbot used to intelligently remember what was previously covered. By adding context, the chatbot would know which intent they should go next, and this will help us to carry on a more consistent conversation within intents and sub-intents. So this is how you would use context. Think of the instances where you are chatting with your parents or with your friends. They said something first, and then you use that information to naturally say something else in reply. So your response, your next question is basically based on what they just said to you. And that's the context that made you to say this thing in reply to them. So that's the main functionality of context. We want to use context to enable our chatbot to have this natural flow of conversation among different topics. Next, I'm going to show you guys how to add in context to connect multiple intents.